We are so glad you guys are here. This is something that we started last year, these parent events, and we would love to know what topics you would like to hear about. So if you have ideas, if there are any burning, pressing questions in your house or anything that you guys are really struggling with, feel free to mention it to me or a teacher, because we have another one planned in a few months, and we'll kind of adapt the topics according to what you guys need. As you know, our mission is to develop confident learners, ethical leaders, and compassionate, engaged citizens. So I'm really proud of the work the teachers do to do all those things in the classroom. We also know we cannot do those things without you guys. You guys are such an important part of that. So we started doing these events to share the ways that teachers do that in the classroom, whether it's through social emotional programming. You'll hear about conscious discipline today, or academic programming. You'll hear about our phonics program and our literacy program today too. So we have all this knowledge, we like to share it. We also like to hear from you too, what works for your kiddo, of course. But I couldn't be prouder of our teachers and all the work they do, so thank you guys for presenting today. We are going to start with Miss Marston, and we're gonna leave some time at the end for some Q&A. The teachers are gonna hang around. Miss Spinlove's, our counselor, is going to hang around. But Miss Marston needs to get back to her toddler. So if you have questions for Miss Marston, make sure that you ask them during or at the end of her presentation. All right, Miss Marston, take it away.
Okay, so I'm kind of laying the baseline of this entire kind of presentation this morning, and just starting off with, I think, ground level, the most important thing, which is recognizing and naming our emotions and feelings, and then helping our child to regulate them. Because we know that when we're able to regulate ourselves, then we're able to use our wisdom to learn, to grow, to ask ourselves, what can I do differently? How can I learn? What can I do better? So we're starting with that baseline level of naming our feelings. So our emotions in general are actually really amazing tools. They communicate to us whether we're on or off track. They're really essential for our well-being. And negative emotions are just as important. They aid in our survival. And so if we shift our mindset to understanding that all emotions, good, bad, and ugly, are our friends and are there to help us, then we are going to become more well-rounded individuals. Emotions are energy in motion. So if we're trying to stop an emotion, then we're preventing wisdom. And we're also shoving things down, down, down deep, and that can result in a lot bigger reactions and emotions later on. So if we're looking at the conscious discipline brain state model, there's 3 areas in the brain that are affiliated with our emotions. So when we are in our survival state, this is the back of our brain, some people, scientists call our reptilian brain, we are only worried about safety. So behaviors within our survival state looks like hiding, fighting, physical reactions, not a lot of language. We lose our language a lot of the times when we're in our survival state. We'll see that with our kiddos too. And the only question we're asking ourselves when we're in survival state is, am I safe, right? So, moving up to our emotional state, this is kind of in the lower middle half of our brain. In our emotional state, we are seeking connection. The question we're asking is, am I loved? Am I connected? Do you see me? So what we see in our emotional state, it is verbal. We see back talk, we see sass, we see yelling, we see verbal reactions. And then all the way up to the front of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, our executive state. When we're in our executive state, we are at our best self. We are in a state of neutral. We are using wisdom. We're using our skills. We're asking the question, what can I learn? What can I do? So our goal within ourselves as adults and with our kids is helping one another get to our executive state, or at least getting to a place of an emotional state where we can use our words, figure out what's going on. This nifty little clacker is something that is brought up time and again with conscious discipline. And this is essentially a symbol for triggers. What triggers us? What sets our clacker off? Often within the classroom, teachers will look at one another and be like, ooh, I think this one's clacker is clacking right now. We're gonna have to slow the clacker down. So this is a symbol for being triggered, right? Because we know that when we're triggered, we'll go to our survival state or we'll go to our emotional state. So this next video or slide is a video of a man named Dr. Dan Siegel. He is a psychiatrist with the university, or with UCLA School of Medicine, and he's going to kind of talk about the brain science talk about the brain science affiliated with being triggered, and how naming our emotions is going to help get us back to our executive state when we're feeling triggered. So he uses the phrase name it to tame it. I'm sure you guys have maybe heard that phrase before, but the importance of naming our emotions, what it does for our brains and what it does for a child's brain. So it's a little jargony at the beginning, but I promise it's going to make sense.
There are studies that everybody should know about that I summarize with the phrase, name it to tame it. So if you're really agitated, you're frightened of being rejected again, or you're really upset with what happened, or you're angry or whatever, in Maria's right brain, I can tell you this, in addition to right and left, there's, now please excuse these incredibly simplistic statements, but there's an upstairs brain and a downstairs brain. Now I'm fine with that for this parenting book, but believe me, my son, my other foot is in science, and the scientists would see that and go, what? But the fact is, there's a cortical rim where a lot of this higher stuff goes on, and there's everything below the cortex. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your fingers and put your hands over the top, give this a try. This would be in my brain like this, see? And so this would be the cortex where you do all your thinking and planning and all that kind of stuff. If you lift up your cortex, you have everything below the cortex, which we call the downstairs brain. That's reasonable. Downstairs is just a substitute for the word subcortical, which freaks parents out. So downstairs. And it's the upstairs brain is the cortex. Okay? So you lift up your upstairs brain, you go to your downstairs brain, that's the subcortex. It's the limbic area, and it's the brainstem. These are very ancient circuits responsible for things like emotion and motivation and fight, flight, freeze reaction, and your arousal states whether you're awake or asleep, stuff like that. So what happens at that moment is, if we did a scan on your brain, we would say that your right amygdala, your limbic area, and your downstairs brain, the downstairs brain is super active. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And studies show that if you have this kind of presence and of mind, I can get Maria's left brain to name feeling from the downstairs brain. And you can show that she will squirt soothing neurotransmitters down to her right limbic area, right downstairs brain, and calm it down.
So this
Okay.
is,
So, we quickly summarize that entire
That's
set of
good.
studies with name it to tame it.
thank you, Ms. Midla. So this is really incredible, right? Now the thing is that as adults, we are typically able to name whatever emotion we're having if we're triggered. But a child is unable to do that, right? Their prefrontal cortex isn't formed in a way that they can stop and use their wisdom to go, whoa, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling scared. So as adults, we have the opportunity to do that for them, to name that emotion. And we're not completely stopping the emotion. We're not saying, oh gosh, you're so sad right now. I can see that you're really sad. And all of a sudden they're like, you are right, I'm sad, I'm good now though, let's go, right? We're not doing that. We're not stopping the emotion, but we're allowing this wisdom and this ability for them to come out of a survival state to help solve the problem with you. Okay, so our role as adults. So during these situations where our child is having really, really big feelings, they're angry, they're scared, they're sad, they're frustrated, that can be really triggering for us as adults, right? It can be triggering, it can be triggering for adults. So a really, really important thing that is talked about with conscious discipline is this concept of mirror neurons, which essentially means that if a child is going up, and is so triggered, and we're going up, going, you're okay, shh, or we're going, hey, I told you not, we're reacting in a big way, they are gonna pick that up, and they're gonna just get higher with those emotions, right? So the most important thing that we can do is, I like to have self-calming mantras in my head of, this child's not giving me a hard time, this child's having a hard time, and I'm safe. I'm safe right now. I'm safe right now. And then we allow our calm to be downloaded by our child, right? Our child is literally, scientifically going to download the calm that you are presenting with them. And that takes work on the adult side, right? It takes a lot of work. And sometimes it means, you're having some big feelings. I need a moment. I'm gonna step away for just a minute so that I can be calm. And then we're gonna figure out what's going on, and then I'm gonna keep you safe, okay? So our ultimate goal, especially amidst really, really big feelings, is downloading calm, maintaining safety. That's the biggest thing. So it's my job to keep you safe. So if we are upset, if we are in our survival state and we're hitting and we're throwing and we are allowed to be mad, but we have to be safe. So we're gonna do the things necessary to make sure that you are safe and that the people around us are safe. I'm gonna move this chair away from you so that you're safe. I'm gonna help you walk over here to this quiet area where there's not a lot of things around so that I can keep you safe, okay? Okay. So, I have a background in theater, so I need a script for a lot of things. It's nice to have a script in my head of phrases that are really, really helpful when I'm with a child who is triggered, because we know it can trigger us as adults. Most of the time it triggers us, right? Being around other people, who are going through big feelings, little or not, it can feel triggering for us. So it is helpful to have phrases or things in your back pocket to say. Conscious discipline really encourages the DNA process. I would definitely say with especially littles, toddler, preschool age, it's really, really helpful when you are first describing what you're seeing, what they're doing, naming that emotion, right, to slow the clacker down, and then using empathy to acknowledge what they were wanting, what they were wishing was going to happen. So it would look something like this, your face is like this, and your shoulders are like this, and there are tears in your eyes. You are so sad. You were wishing that mommy would stay with you for chapel today, and mommy has to go to work. I hear you. You've got this. You can still maintain the boundary. I hear you. I know that you're so sad. I understand that. You're allowed to be sad, right? You've got this. You can handle this. You are safe here, and I'm gonna see you after school, okay? You got it. So again, we're not eliminating the meltdown. We're not eliminating the upset or the feeling, but we're allowing this threshold of tolerance. Maybe the threshold of tolerance for a sad emotion or a scary emotion or an angry emotion is like right here for a child. Like, I can't tolerate this feeling. I can't tolerate, this anger, this frustration. But maybe with our DNA process or with using our ability to describe their emotion, we're like here, right? All we're doing is widening that threshold of tolerance, because even as adults, it's hard for us to handle big feelings and big emotions. We're not trying to eliminate them at all. I love Dr. Becky at Good Inside. If you don't follow her on Instagram, do it. She's the best. She's amazing. She has great phrases to use. I love this. You're a good kid having a hard time. You're a good kiddo, I know. You're having a tough time. I love this one too. I'm not scared of your feelings. Because when you're a child and you're experiencing these big, big emotions, it can feel really scary to feel so greatly and strongly that you are like thrashing and crying, and it's scary for a child to feel that way. I'm not scared of your big feelings. I'm here with you. We've got this. Feelings can be confusing and overwhelming. It makes sense that they're so tricky to talk about. When you're ready, I'll be right here with you. Another great phrase, it makes sense that you feel this way, right? We're gonna empathize and empathize and empathize. We're still gonna hold whatever boundary we're wanting to hold and needing to hold so that they feel safe, because boundaries make us feel safe, they do. But we're not going to discredit the feelings that come with that boundary. Thank you, it's been love. So, to conclude, we're not trying to wave a magic wand and eliminate things like crying or tantrums or anger. What we're trying to do is allowing them to empower themselves to know that I can handle whatever feeling is coming my way. And another thing to remember is, or for them to learn, is that I'm not alone in my feelings, right? Somebody sees me, somebody hears me, somebody acknowledges me. And when we feel seen, heard, understood, I think about friendships, I think about relationships, I think about family relationships. When we feel seen, heard, and understood by someone, we're so much more likely to do what's asked of them, what they're asking of us, than if we don't feel like we're being understood or acknowledged for who we are and how we feel. This takes repetition. And that's a tricky part of just like, okay, here we are, we're gonna do this again, and I'm gonna sit with you until you feel ready, and I'm gonna keep you safe, and I'm right here with you. Even though this is hard, we've got this together, and building that connection is key. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Marston. We're going to give you the opportunity to ask any questions to Ms. Marston. This is a safe spot, too.
Yes, oh my gosh.
Can.
Miss Marston gets triggered. Miss Marston's clacker goes off. Listen.
I always like to tell the story with when Ms. Marston talks about this, is how this is a tool that works into like the teenage years too. So like my kids are 11 and 14, and sometimes I'll say, I can tell that you're feeling really disappointed because I'm not letting you do blank. That's understandable. But my kids are at the point where they're like, Mom, that conscious discipline stuff. But it does. It's a tool that you will use for years and years to make your child feel seen and heard and to work through those big feelings with them. Do you have questions for Ms. Marston before she has to get back to our toddlers?
I have just like a little story.
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting. So my oldest daughter is in 4th grade. She's about to turn 10. So we've been doing this just because we've been here for school for a while, and she's very emotionally aware, and which is great. I think she's learned that. But what's interesting is I'll do this, and she can tell when I'm just reading the script. Like she can tell when I'm not actually connecting with her. So she'll say, like she'll stop and be like, Mom, I just need some love, and I'll be like, and inside I'm like, I'm so mad right now. I'm irritated. I'm so mad. Everything you've just done is so uncalled for. And then she'll like literally ask me to like she'll like get in my lap like a little baby, like, right? And it's like she's calling for me to, because I'm still in the survival space.
Yes.
Even though I am saying all the things
Yep.
to not be, I haven't actually gotten there.
That's
And
so
it's-
real.
It's so, and it takes me a minute, like I'm like holding her like an infant child, and then that finally, eventually.
Because you
gets
needed
me.
that too, right?
Probably.
Like that connection, it goes both ways, doesn't it? And like the intention behind the words, that's so real.
Yeah.
Like it can't be, you're a good kid having a hard time. I'm gonna keep you safe, so I'm gonna hold your hand right now, and I'm gonna walk you over here, right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's
that's,
interesting how she can tell.
and she has that wisdom. I mean, how cool is that? Wow, thank you for sharing that.
It is the long game. I feel like
Whew.
that's what my pediatrician said to me like a year or two ago. Like, I think a lot of our parents' generation did not parent this way. So she's like, this is the long game, and I love that. And that's what you were just describing. Years and years and
It
years
is,
of this.
but then you have a 4th grader who goes, this is what I need, Mom.
Yeah.
I just really need you to love, and that's it. Because then when they're becoming adults, that's what we want of like, I'm going through something, what do I need right now for myself? I mean, honestly, Jessica, I love that. I
We
love that
actually
she said
planted
that.
Jessica in the crowd.
We did, you have to see her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, anything else for Ms. Marston?
Glad that y'all are here. This is hard work.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Marston. All right, our next presentation is a dual tag team presentation with Mrs. Bruns, our preschool teacher, and Ms. Spinlove, our ECC counselor. We are so happy to have Ms. Spinlove here full time. It was a part-time position previously. When I started here in 2014, we had 0 counselors in the school. And now we have 2 full-time counselors, which is huge, and we see that work come to fruition in our kids for sure. So Ms. Spinlove's going to start out talking about kind of the brain science behind why separation is so hard at this age, and Mrs. Bruns is going to follow up with some really practical parent solutions to dealing with separation. Hi.
Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about like what happens in like their little brains when they're separating from you and why that's so hard. And actually, like being upset when your mom or dad or grown up leaves you, like that's developmentally appropriate. It's not always good that we're seeing it. It doesn't feel good that we're seeing it, but it does show us that your child has that connection and attachment to you. So like part of that is good. They're forming healthy attachments and they're able to like get what they need from you, and so they're worried when you leave because they're worried they're not going to get what they need. Object permanence, that's like when you play peekaboo with a baby. Like infants, you can't play peekaboo with, they don't know what's happening. But when they're like 4 to 7 months old and you play peekaboo, they get excited because they're like, no one's there, but someone's really there. So once kids gain that object permanence and they get that, they realize that you're not with them. So that's why like an infant could be cared for by anybody and they're not really gonna notice like and be upset usually, but a baby who's like 4 to 7 months old, they're like, you're not my mom, and then they start to freak out and they get that stranger danger. So when kids are little, they start to realize you're not with them. So when you drop off your toddler to a toddler room and they're hyperventilating, freaking out, they're like, oh, my mom's leaving and they're not gonna come back. And I don't have the concept of time to know how long that is. So for them, they're like, my mom leaves me and I'm not gonna see her ever again. I don't know how long an hour is. I don't know how long my school day is. They don't understand that. So they're just wondering, when will my grown-up come back? Will they ever come back? Things like that. And then attachment, so your children love you and they want to be with you. As a parent, like your kids' first like contact, right? So you give them food, you give them shelter, you give them water, all those things in their survival state that they need. And then when you're not with them, they're like, who's gonna do that for me? I'm not safe if my mom leaves, things like that. So. And then like what's going on deeper is children may enter this survival state in the brain when they're separating, just like Miss Marston just talked about. So like I just said, my grown-up keeps me safe. When they leave, I am not safe. So they're in that survival state and they're looking for that safety piece. So they're looking to know, am I safe? What's gonna happen? All those things. And then different things can really make separating harder. So if you have a change in routine or a new classroom, so the beginning of the year can be really hard for some kids because they're going from the teacher that they know who they knew was safe to a new teacher, a new classroom, new friends, in a new setting. So that's really hard. And any change in routine, like not getting enough sleep, or if mom's on vacation or dad's on vacation, or last night we had to do 3 things that I'm not used to doing and then I had to go to school in the morning, all of those things can make separation the next day harder. And then most of the time children grow away from it. There is like, sometimes there's an aspect of anxiety or separation anxiety disorder. That's kind of like a deeper thing that might need like more to be able to work through, but most of the time it just kind of like, they get used to it, you fall into a routine that they feel comfortable with, and it may come back if like there's something else happening at home, or if there's a sub in the room, things like that, but most of the time it is something that they can grow away from. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Finla.
So how can you help your child feel comfortable? Well, as Ms. Marston talked about this morning, mirror neurons, what we feel, our kids are feeling. So if you are nervous about dropping your child off for the day, guess what you're telling your child? Be nervous, be scared. So download Calm Yourself first. Make sure you feel, I know my child is safe going into the classroom they're going into. I know they're gonna be loved. I know they're gonna be taken care of. Download those feelings, because that's what we want our child to feel when they're going into the classroom. We don't want them nervous and worried. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel loved. And all the teachers here, I promise, will love on your kids, we'll take care of them, we'll keep them safe. So in order to help your child be calm coming into the classroom, make sure you're calm. That's the biggest thing you can do for your child is be calm yourself. And I know it's hard. I had a child who screamed and cried up through 1st grade, did not want to go to school, hated going to school. He's now grown up and he looks back and he goes, yeah, I was such a baby when I did that. But he really had that trouble with that separation. So first we gotta calm ourselves so we can help to calm them. Anticipate that they may get upset, and that's okay. It's okay if they get upset, but just reiterate, you're safe at school, your teachers are here, they're going to help you. And don't get upset if they get upset. Keep your calm. If you want to go to the next one. Some things you can also do to help make it easier for your child. Have a set routine or ritual. We're going to go to school, I'm going to take you in, we're going to say goodbye. There are books, Llama Llama, Mrs. Mama. Kind of goes through the story of a little llama who was very sad when he came to school, but then he found out school was fun. So you can talk to your child ahead of time, ahead of coming into school. This is what's going to happen. We're going to go into school. This is our routine. Once you kind of get a routine, be consistent with that routine, because our brain is pattern seeking. Have you ever found when you go into like church on Sunday, you sit in the exact same pew every Sunday, that's your pew, and if somebody else is sitting in that pew, it kind of throws you off for church. Does with my family every time we walk in if somebody's in our pew. Our brains seek patterns. Your kids' brains are the same way. They seek patterns. So if you come in and you normally walk your kindergartner down first, and then you bring your toddler or preschooler down to the classroom, and one day your kindergartner goes, nope, today I want to walk them in first. Guess who's going to be thrown off? Your preschooler or toddler who's like, no, that's not my routine. I know exactly I'm supposed to drop them off first. So be consistent with how you bring them in the morning. That will help them a lot. They know that routine. It's what they're comfortable with, and it will help get them going. The other thing is be on time. When we're already here in chapel, it is so hard for kids. It's not what they're used to. They're used to being in the classroom. They're used to coming with their class over to chapel. They're feeling frazzled now because they weren't there at a time that everybody else, and they're not used to their normal routine. I have a little video here of a little girl, and this is her morning routine with her mom every morning, and then she comes into class. This is Monroe out of my class this year with her mom. So she comes in, she does rainbow squishy face, big hug, and then they put a kiss, and then she comes into the classroom. Every morning we get rainbow squishy face, we get a big hug, we get a heart kiss, and we're gone. That is her routine every morning. I don't know how they came up with it, but this is what they do, and she comes in with no problems. One morning, mom was running late, they were over at Big Chapel, mom handed her to me, and mom left. She didn't get to do this routine. We were off all morning because we hadn't gone through those steps. That is comfort to her to be able to go through those steps. So the other thing to remember is that we can talk to our kids all day long, but kids think in pictures. So if your child is really struggling with a transition, take pictures of them. So like, you can talk to your child, we're going to St. Paul's. If you just tell them we're going to St. Paul's, kids at a young age, they think in pictures. If you show them a picture of this is where we're going to St. Paul's, then we're gonna walk down the walkway, we're gonna go inside, you're gonna greet the greeter in the morning, then some kids will put up their backpacks, some kids won't, and then you're going to go to your teacher. And every day before coming to school, you just flip through these pictures, your child then gets the idea of what to expect. And most of the time in the classrooms, your teachers are gonna have something that shows them what to expect as soon as they get there. So the words are here not for the kids, they can't read. The words are here for the adults. But the pictures are here for the kids. You're gonna tell your grown-up goodbye when they get here. You're gonna tell your teacher hello. Then you're gonna go take care of your water bottle, your lunchbox, your backpack, go use the bathroom, wash your hands, do your morning routine. This is consistent every day. It's a pattern the kids are used to. And each classroom kind of has their own pattern, but for the general gist, this is the pattern. When the kids get in the routine of doing this, it makes that transition so much easier. You can do a schedule like this for anything. If your child is having trouble with any transition, morning, it's really frantic, hectic around my house, take a picture of your kids going through the step. Okay, now you brush your teeth, well, what comes next? Oh, now it's breakfast time. Okay, now what comes next? I get on my shoes. They think in pictures. Help them organize by giving them the pictures to organize their routine. And it can make any transition, I promise you, after it gets into a routine, it gets easier. If you happen to have long separations, it's really hard for kids. They don't understand. I know I'll talk to my kids and they'll be like, oh, mom and dad are gone. And I'm like, well, when do they come back? Well, I don't know. It's hard for kids to not know when their parents are coming back. You can make it easier for them by giving them something visual. Let's say you're gonna be gone for a couple weeks and they've got grandma and grandpa there. Well, sit down with them and make a little chain with them. And every morning when you wake up after sleep, we're gonna take a link off the chain. Hi, guys. And as the chain gets shorter, they'll realize, and after we take off all the links, this is when you know mom and dad's gonna be coming home. You wouldn't like it if your spouse got up in the morning, had the suitcase at the door and went, bye, I'll see you later when I get back, and just left. We can understand them saying, I'm gonna be gone for a weekend, I'm gonna be gone for 2 weeks. Kids don't understand that, they don't have that time permanence. So give them something that they can actually see, take a link off every morning when you wake up, and then if you've got something special along the way, like, hey, when we get to this chain that night, we're gonna watch a movie together. You can give them little things along the way that they can look forward to, so it's not so long. You know, maybe here we're gonna go see grandma and grandpa, or we're gonna go to the park. You can put just a little picture on it, something, mark it, and then they have things to look forward to, but they still know when somebody's coming back. So long separations are hard. They can be made easier when the kids understand what's going on. We all want to know what's going on, and they just don't by just the words. They have to have pictures or something visual or something they can do to help them understand. I think that's what I've got.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bruns. Do you all have any immediate questions for Ms. Bruns about separation? Anyone just want to share? Again, safe space.
Do
Yes.
you have any insight on transition problems, like transitioning from one activity to the next
So like within your,
per day?
can you be a little, you know,
Going to Spanish, coming to chapel,
okay.
arriving.
I would, always give a warning. Kids, it's hard to just go from, man, I'm playing right here and I'm having fun, to, okay, stop right now, don't do any more, we gotta go, let's get moving. So I always try to give like a little warning, okay, in just a couple minutes, in 2 minutes or whatever, we're going to stop what we're doing and we're going to be moving to the next activity. So you have 2 minutes to finish up whatever you're doing here. And then you can also do things like giving choices. In 2 minutes when we finish up here and we're gonna clean up, then do you wanna wear your red shoes today or your blue shoes today? Which shoes do you wanna wear to go on to school or whatever, whenever the transition is? Everyone likes a choice. That empowers them, that makes them feel like they have control. We can always give choices that are both acceptable. So you're not in a battle. Doesn't matter to me if you wear your red shoes or your blue shoes. Whatever you pick, it gives them power, it gives them control, and it helps them to, oh yeah, okay, now I'm thinking, well, which one do I want to wear? And so they're thinking of something different than I just had to stop my Legos because they're fun to play with. I don't know if that helps your question.
No.
No?
It's great.
I think, and this is stuff that all of our teachers use a visual schedule. It's a conscious discipline strategy that we have in all classrooms. So when they come to school every day, they can see pictures, and it gets pretty long in kindergarten, pictures of what their whole day looks like. So anytime, and that starts in toddler, anytime they're curious, they know I have to do this, this, and this before I see mom. Sometimes our parents carry that strategy over to home with some strategy similar to what Mrs. Bruns said, by getting a copy of the schedule if you don't already have it, and then talking through it the night before. Even though it might be uncomfortable to say, tomorrow you have this, this, and this, especially if it's something that makes the child uncomfortable, it still helps because they at least know what's coming. So again, like the long game, short game, really uncomfortable. You have to handle it at home. Long game, it's going to help them know what to expect and make the transition. That's one thing, but it's also child specific. So good. Great
I'd be
question.
happy to talk to you. If you have a specific concern, we can chat.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One thing that we found out that kind of helps, especially like when we take our daughter to the park, is we put a timer and we have her help set the
Oh,
timer.
yeah, I do all the things.
Yeah, and usually that helps.
I do the timer, the choices, the preparedness the night before. I think I just have
And sometimes you do.
I have a good
all the
kid
things.
with big emotions.
Yeah, and sometimes you do all the things and it takes time. You have to, don't think that just because you're doing all the things and you're not seeing progress really quickly, that it's not worth doing all the things. Like sometimes it just takes time is the best gift we can give them to make that transition. So don't pull that step away, just keep doing it and we'll get there. Every kid's on a different timeline.
Because we actually become our kids' inner voice, that voice that we hear all the time. I know I can hear my parents even now. We want to give them a good inner voice as they're growing up. We don't want to give them, if you don't eat every single thing on your plate tonight for dinner, then forget it, you have to go right to bed after dinner. We want them to hear that inner voice of calm, that inner voice of, okay, here's what's next, you got this, you can handle this. Because then it becomes their inner voice as to what they're hearing. And it may take telling them it 100 times before it finally starts for them to hear it. But it's 100 times well worth hearing it over and over and over again. Because it's gonna last them a lifetime. And they're gonna pass it on, hopefully, to their kids. And it is hard, it's not easy. And kids have big emotions, calm ourselves first so we can help them to calm.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. All right. Mrs. Panzino, kindergarten teacher, is going to give the next presentation, the final presentation, all about early literacy, the science of reading, and what programs we use at school to support those things, and probably most importantly, what you can do at home.
Yes,
All right,
definitely.
Mrs. Panzino.
First of all, thank you guys for being here. I think just by showing up shows that you're really intentional parents and your kids are lucky to have parents that go above and beyond to learn all the strategies to help them. I'm going to talk a little bit about learning to read, which I think is kind of the magic of early childhood, right? That by the end of kindergarten, everyone's hopeful that their child is going to leave here a little reader, ready to head over to the other building and just aim for the stars in first grade. But with that expectation and that excitement, I think comes some trepidation and some fear, at least it did for me when my kids were this age, kind of like, how is that gonna happen? And when is that gonna happen for my child? Where does my child fall? Are they gonna be one of the first to learn or one of the last to learn? I think it definitely is a bit of a fear-inducing process. But what is really awesome is I think we have an amazing plan at St. Paul's. So I'm gonna go through a little bit of what we do here so that we can make sure that every single child that comes through St. Paul's becomes a proficient and skilled reader. I don't know if you guys are aware, I'm sure you are, but there has been a lot of recent controversy over our approach in reading instruction. Since like the 80s, we have followed something called balanced literacy. This is probably how we were all taught in our classrooms, and it looked something like this. Hand a child a book, maybe have them have some silent, sustained reading time, and voila, they will be able to read. If they couldn't, then maybe we would give them some cueing systems, like look at the picture and make a guess, or look at the word and you know the first sound, so make a guess what that word is. Unfortunately, what we found out, this all looked really pretty and cozy with all these children sitting around the room looking at their books, but what we found out is that those children were not learning how to read. So we have a problem in America that we need to solve. So these literacy heroes of mine get together and do all this wonderful scientific research, and realize that we're going about this all the wrong way. And all of the research and all the science tells us there is a much more effective way to teach our children how to read. We always assumed that just like when our kids are toddlers, that we speak to them, or babies, we speak to them and they're gonna learn how to speak. That happens. And we thought the same thing for reading. We thought if we exposed our children to books and literature, that they would just learn how to read. We were very wrong. Children absolutely need direct, systematic, explicit reading instruction in order to become proficient, skilled readers. So what we were noticing is that when children get to like third grade, where they're not learning to read anymore, they are reading to learn. They're actually reading a book about Egypt, or they're reading a book about the American Revolution. Kids were really struggling because there were no pictures anymore. There were no those guessing strategies where they looked at the first sound of the word. That wasn't working. So then those kids were struggling on standardized tests and reading comprehension passages because they were missing all those really vital building blocks that we were not teaching them. So my husband would make so much fun of me that I'm gonna use a basketball analogy because I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I do think it's a good one. So basically what we were asking children to do, we were like putting a ball in their hands, right? And asking them to watch a couple of games on TV, and then hoping that they would go out and be like really great little basketball players. Well, we all know that that doesn't work, right? Maybe for LeBron James, he might get a ball, watch some games, and everything would go wonderfully for him, but for the vast majority of us, we would need to scrimmage, we would need skill drills, we would need all kinds of systematic practice in order to become a skilled basketball player. Reading is the exact same way. So this is not to get too sciencey, but this is the Scarboroughs reading rope. And it's divided into two sections, one being word recognition and one being reading comprehension. And what we know now is that these skills cannot be taught in isolation. So we can't say like, in first grade, we're gonna teach all about background knowledge. In second grade, we're gonna teach about sight words. It just doesn't work like that. All of it needs to be interdependent on the other skills. So especially in early childhood, we're looking at this word recognition section, but also intertwining all of this background knowledge, verbal reasoning, vocabulary knowledge, because if the child is missing one of those or one of those areas is weak, the whole rope kind of falls apart. So we now know that all of these things are so important in order for our children to be successful readers as they go on in their educational journey. Okay, this is the cool part. Here's what we're doing at St. Paul's, and I get really excited about this. My co-teachers make fun of me, but I love it. We are being trained in everything. So between the kindergarten teachers and the pre-K teachers, and Lisa knows the big kid teachers too, we are trained in Orton Gillingham. There's a couple of us that are going through letters training, which is a 2-year phonics training commitment, very exciting. And then we're all trained in Wilson Foundations, and that's the curriculum that we've embraced at St. Paul's. We also this year are starting the Hegarty Phonemic Awareness curriculum, which is really exciting because we noticed a gap in our phonological awareness, which is where children are hearing the words. So we have phonemes, which are like the letter sounds, and then we have graphemes, which are the actual letters in print. And we were realizing that sound component was lacking, so we added that. This is where I get really, really excited. We got these, in kindergarten, we got this new geodes curriculum that goes along with foundations. And we have these, okay, so in this whole school of thought, we don't do that predictable text anymore, so your child won't get sent home a book that says, I see a red ball, I see a green ball, I see a blue ball, because all they're learning to do is memorize and use a picture cue. So what we want is purely decodable text, which means every single word they are working with their fingers to sound out. So each word should be accessible because we have taught those skills at school. So this is the coolest. We got these new decodable texts and we work our kids through these. And I don't know who the focus group they used on these, but the kindergartners are fascinated by the concepts in these books. And it has a really cool like social studies science tie. So we're very excited about them. This was a gigantic hit, Galapagos Adventure. And we always kind of look and we're like, really? Is this gonna take off? But it does. They get so excited, and they even like notice it out in the real world. Like they make all kinds of connections, and everything in these books is decodable, which is so cool. So that's been a really, really awesome addition to our curriculum. Also, I think just bottom line is that as teachers, we see that this works. So we were taught in school balanced literacy. We thought that that's what we were supposed to be doing. Now that we've taken this turn and embraced this new methodology, it is the most exciting thing. Like I wish you guys could all be in my classroom when they're putting these building blocks together because it's pure magic. Like it is, they feel so powerful and it's just very exciting to watch. Okay, so I put a little video on here, it's like 14 seconds, but I think sometimes a misconception is that phonics instruction is really boring. It sounds like it would be a lot of drill, flashcards, that kind of thing. And it's not. The kids love it. So this is a game that we play in our room. So Orton Gillingham and Foundations are both very vowel intensive, and this is where I really get teased because I love vowels. I have capes that I wear with the vowels on the back because they're superheroes and you can't do anything without a vowel. So we are playing a vowel intensive game, and I think you're gonna see my teacher heart like beats out of my chest because they're excited about vowels too. So we play a game where we line up with a partner our vowel tents in between the partner and myself. And so like we're working on I, ah, and Those are our 3 vowels we're working on. So we put the tents in between us, and then I say clap, boom, and then grab. But this time I made it a little trickier. We played that game for a while, just a listening game. And then I say clap, boom, and they have to grab the correct vowel. Because those vowel sounds are so tricky. They sound very similar. So watch my class play this. It's adorable, I think.
Clap.
Boom. Clap, boom, clap. Clap, clap, clap. Clap, boom,
I mean, do you hear Bailey McCullough? I got the I got the I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right? So, and they're so proud of themselves. these multisensory cues that we use just really work. I mean, you see them when they're sounding out a word, these little people, and they're over there going, I mean, it's magical, I think. So anyways, we're doing some very cool things here. And like I said, I wish you guys could, I don't know, watch all of it because it's very exciting. Okay, so how can you continue this work at home? Probably stuff that you guys are already doing. I mean, the parents that are here are probably the ones that are already doing this kind of stuff, but just to reinforce, reading together is really important, obviously. But also like singing together in the car. Those kind of things are really important. That rhyming that you find in nursery rhymes and songs, that can be very helpful to build their fluency. Like for instance, like if you're singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with your toddler, like don't just leave it there. Talk about what sparkle means. Make your hands sparkle. Come up with a synonym. You can just take it a little bit farther. And then this is one that I love doing in my kindergarten classroom because it's adorable because they start to mimic you. So talk to your kid like a grown-up, right? Like I think sometimes it's our tendency to, for lack of a better phrase, like dumb down how we talk to them. They don't need that. They love it when you talk to them like an adult. I just walked a little girl to the nurse yesterday that had a huge goose egg on her head, and I said, we'll get an ice pack to decrease the swelling. And she thought about it for a second. She said, what does that mean, Mrs. Panzino? What does it mean to decrease the swelling? So I explained it to her, and then later on, I heard her say to another child, that decreased my swelling. And I'm like, that's so cool, right? Like, and if I had said, oh, you have a bump on your head, you know, that you really can't underestimate them because they latch onto this stuff much more than we think they do. And then also just noticing things. I know you guys take your kids wonderful places and expose them to all kinds of cool things, but also just like the grocery store or your drive to St. Paul's in the morning. Point out signs, see if they recognize letters on your way. There's all kinds of cool opportunities that don't take a lot of time and don't need like flashcard repetition. Don't do that because you want reading and literacy to be fun. Another thing is just emphasize your child's name. I mean, I think this probably goes more to the toddler preschool parents, but repeating the letters of your child's name. If they draw a picture at home, say, I'm gonna write your name on here for you, and your name is M-A-X, Max. Or when your child's developmentally ready, maybe help them write the first letter, and then you write the rest. Names are powerful, and they feel good about their names. It's a way to show ownership of their work, and it's a great way to introduce those first letters in a way that feels relevant to them. So. Okay, this is where I get really, really nerdy. So in my free time, and I tell Mindy this, I like texted her the other night, I'm like, I found another cool podcast about literacy. It does not get dorkier. I think my husband maybe second guesses our marriage sometimes. It's bizarre, but I really do like this stuff. These would be my biggest recommendations. Sold a Story is a New York Times podcast. It's absolutely excellent, and I don't think it just appeals to nerdy early childhood teachers. It's very interesting what has happened since the 80s. I mean, we really were kind of sold a story that this reading instruction worked, and there were so many poor kids that were left behind. So it's very exciting that we have this new science. This is a little bit hard to access, but if you can get the truth about reading, it's a documentary produced by LeVar Burton, the Reading Rainbow guy. And it's also excellent about the science of reading and how we're helping children. I would recommend this book for your children, but also it really breaks it down for adults too, how our brains learn how to read. It's very wordy, so I wouldn't read the whole thing in one sitting, but we are working through this as a class because it's so cool for them to know, like, what is their brain doing while they're learning all of this stuff? You know, they're excited, but this makes it really real. And then for a more dense book, if you're really up for it, Reading in the Brain, The New Science of How We Read is fabulous. So, and I have more, so come to me if you want more reading resources. Does anyone have any questions about this? Yeah, Megan.
What about the mixing up of letters, like writing a 3 backwards, or
It's so common. So I think that we were taught for a very long time that it might be a marker for dyslexia.
Right, but it was like the only marker,
which is not true.
Right.
Like the reversal situation is like the least of the markers for dyslexia, honestly.
Yeah.
So we see it up through 2nd grade, like especially like BD reversal. Personally, it's not anything that I panic about when I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, we work on it, we give reminders, but it isn't one of those things that I'm gonna drill Grayson every day to make a 3 the right way.
Right.
Because I just feel like that's not keeping our eye on the ball,
Yeah.
right? I think that happens organically as they grow up. And if it continues into a grade that's, developmentally inappropriate, then we'll address that.
Do you correct?
Yes, I do correct, and not always though. So
Well,
like
Grayson
some,
wrote the Chiefs score was like 33. He wrote
Yeah.
backwards. My husband, is this a problem? And that's what cued me to
Totally.
ask it.
No,
So do you correct?
I think
and
it's
say-
amazing that he's at home writing 33. I think you're doing an amazing job. No, and sometimes I do. So I think it depends. Like if we are doing a writing activity where I want them to feel free to express themselves, I'm not gonna get into that nitty gritty
Right,
because
I didn't wanna
you don't wanna crush their little spirit, right? And Grayson's so like that. He's like following his learning and he's excited, so you not always. But there are a time and place when we're working on letter formation or number formation where I might say, hey, look at that. Look at the one on your name tag. How do they look different? How could we work on this?
Right.
But again, handwriting can be a scary process for a lot of kids. I mean,